Generic selectors. We have a new generic selector type. It replaces the service-specific selectors that you've been using before. So whereas, say, campaign service had its own selector type, now we have one single selector object that is used across services. Now, the biggest difference you guys will notice immediately is that instead of selecting all of the fields for an object at once, you now have to specify the individual fields that you want back. This also provides for powerful filtering and sorting options within your selectors. So generic selectors return objects specific to the service that they're used with. What does that mean? It means that you can use the same selector object on the campaign service that you can use on the ad group ad service, or the ad group service, and it will automatically return a list of ad groups or campaigns or ads or whatever it is that you're using in conjunction with. So you could also do this previously, but we've maintained the stats retrieval functionality for specific date ranges, request ordering, and request paging. So these are the services that are moving to generic selectors. I'm sure you guys will recognize quite a few that you use selectors on yourselves, so this full list is available with the documentation. So fields can be either selectable, filterable, or neither. These are the fields of an object. So if it's selectable, it means it can be retrieved with a selector by a get operation. So that's something like the campaign ID. Filterable means values can be filtered using a predicate within a selector. Not all fields fit into both categories. Here for the ad group object, you have the ad group ID. It says that it is filterable and selectable. The status is also filterable and selectable. So what does the new selector object look like? Well, it has the following 5 fields. The fields field, which is the list of fields that you want to select. This is the one required field here. The predicates, this is what you use for filtering. The date range for stats that you want. The ordering field to sort on, and you can sort on multiple fields, as well as the sort order. So you can do campaign name ascending and then by clicks, for example. Paging and rules for paginating of the results. So for example, we want to get these 4 fields back. For the campaign object, then we'll use the following selector. Set the fields as an array of strings, these 4. And then this selector could be used with the get operation just as it is. Remember I said that the fields field is the only required property that you have to set on the selector. So if you only want to retrieve a campaign with a specific ID, or you only want to retrieve a campaign with more than 200 clicks over a specific date range, you can do all of these quite powerful things using predicates. Here we say, for this predicate object, we're setting the field that we want to filter on as ID. We're setting the operator as in. So the ID is in this array of values. And then we add that predicate to our selector object. So here we're going to sort by 2 different properties. First by name ascending, and then by start date descending. Again, pretty easy. We create our order by objects and set the field names to name and start date. We set the order here to descending, because we don't need to for the default for the other one. Now, paging works quite similarly to how it did in the old version. So we set our start index, we set the number of results we want. Pretty straightforward, right? Okay, now let's talk about selecting stats. So use the selector date range to specify the stats fields that you want returned. So if you are selecting the following fields, ID, text, clicks, CTR, and cost, you want to filter where the clicks are greater than 200, then you use the following selector. Here we're setting the fields that we want back, and we're setting the date range, specified in the strings above. Then we're adding a predicate. We're saying that we want to filter on fields where the value is greater than 200. So the list of available predicate operators is pretty big. You can see the full list in the documentation. So the response object is the same type that you got back in previous versions. It's if you're using generic selectors with the campaign service, you get back a campaign object. Using them for the ad group service, you get an ad group back. Now, one thing to note though is you may get null values back for fields that you don't request. So if your code is currently kind of indiscriminately accessing fields on the objects, you might need to add in some null checking. An easy way to do the migration is just check which fields you need in your existing code, and then build your selector to match that. All right, so what are some best practices? First of all, specify only the fields you actually want. Don't try to imitate the select star functionality of the previous version. It kind of defeats the purpose, and you'll always be playing catch up as we modify the objects. These are the two errors you will most commonly see with generic selectors, the invalid field name and the invalid predicate field name, which are pretty self-explanatory. You give us a string that we don't know how to handle, we'll give you back this error. And then you can use generic selectors to add new and interesting functionality. So get criteria clicked greater than 200 and CTR of less than 3.0 last week. So if you don't have all of the data for a given account cached in your system, you can select it all on the fly based on your user's needs of your application. So we've put together a selector migration guide. It includes both a mapping of the fields in each object to their selector names, if you will, selector field names, and also includes some sample code in PHP that shows roughly what I put up on the board today. Well, thank you very much.